I'm calling to order this special operations meeting for budget. I'm going to turn it over to Sal. Or
Excellent.
Dr. Menzo, sorry.
No worries, no worries. So we're happy to be back to discuss the budget. Just to remind everyone, the reason why we've had a delay in this process is because we've been working with the insurance company and the town offices. The mayor has been extremely supportive and helpful in trying to make sure that we had the best information to bring to the board before you prematurely made a decision that then you were only going to have to go back and change potentially. So the information we'd like to start with tonight is the information we just that the board has in front of themselves, which talks about our operating budget. Last time we met, we were at a 4.27 increase, and that was based on a 25.3% increase for health insurance. Over the last 2 weeks, there's been some discussion, and I'll start, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dominic Barone, our business manager, who has been working so hard on this. I certainly cannot take credit for the work that's been put into this, but over the last 2 weeks, last Thursday we met with the mayor and the insurance consultants, and it went down to about a 17% increase. And in that meeting, we talked about the insurance that you take when you're self-insured. There's a stop loss insurance. And at the present time, we have a $200,000 stop loss. And we were looking at that insurance cost, and our insurance consultants said that we were paying a high premium to Anthem for that loss. And when we looked at it, if we went and we raised the threshold to $250, that premium went down. And when we did an analysis of our catastrophic losses over the last 5 years, there was still, even if we went up to the $250, we would not be in deficit. We would actually still save well over $500,000. So at that meeting last week, we said to the insurance consultants, with the help of the mayor, that we asked the insurance company to go back, and the insurance consultants to go back and revisit the numbers, determining whether or not, what would be the savings if we went up to the $250,000 threshold for the stop loss. The good news is they came back yesterday at noon with the insurance reduction that you see in front of you, which represents a significant decrease in the budget from a 4.27 to a 3.06. So we're very pleased that we were able to drop down to a 14.5% increase from the 25.3%. We don't know. There's an off chance, very, 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 very slim off chance that this might drop again, because we will pick up another month of experience come March. But we didn't want to wait until March, obviously, to give you these numbers. We couldn't. But if that changes, that'll also help us. But at this point, this is based on the February data, or excuse me, on the January data. The February data will come out in March. Right now, our trend for experience rating, meaning the amount of money we're spending on claims, is very, very good. It's very favorable. So it could go down, but again, we're not looking it to go down. I would not say percentage points, maybe points of a percentage point. But again, we wanted to share this, obviously, and set the stage tonight for the discussion. But I'll turn it over to Mr. Barone just to kind of fill in any of the gaps that I most likely have.
Well, good evening. I think, you did a great job explaining it. Just to, I guess, circle or to reiterate, the insurance consultant came in probably in October of this year. So they were a little bit, I would say, behind the eight ball, that they came in midstream. And so they were trying to get the initial estimates. They did what they could, but they had only, I want to say, 3 or 4 months of current year trend and 9 months of old year trend, and obviously the old year wasn't very good. So as they got additional years of trend, it was the trend was getting a lot better. So that helped us significantly, and they also were, I think it was good that we looked at the stop loss, because, and that's, by the way, individual stop loss. So that's at the individual level. We also have an aggregate stop loss that's the claims for everybody, but the individual stop loss is a stop loss on a particular individual for the contract year. So it goes from July to June, and then in July, the following July, it resets to 0, and you can go up. And based on that analysis, it made sense to raise the stop loss to 250,000. It reduced the premium significantly, and we don't think it increased our risk that much. And we kind of feel that Anthem was pushing us that way based on the premiums we were getting, and we were getting charged at the 200,000 level, that they kind of pushed us where they wanted us to be. So that's, that's it in a nutshell. We got the new rates yesterday at about 12:30, 1 o'clock, so we were scrambling. And unlike previous years, a lot of times it was an across-the-board increase of 12% or what have you. This one, each individual, we got new rates for each individual category, each group, whether it was the clerk HDHP plan, clerk PPO. So, it was a little more involved, but it also, I think they kind of reset where all the premiums are.
Don, did we also increase the aggregate stop loss? Since we were increasing the individual, or do we keep that the status quo?
We kept that the same. It was the individual that we increased.
Did we look at what the potential savings could be if we increased the aggregate?
They looked at it and didn't
pay off?
well, they looked at it and said they didn't think we wanted to even
Okay,
address
just want to make
that
sure they
that
looked at
point.
it.
Correct.
Mrs. Riccio.
When you say that they looked at every single bucket, does that mean that we have different increase percentage than the rest of the town? What is-
What had happened over the years was the plans, there were similar, or exactly, some of the plans were the same, but the pricing was a little different. It wasn't significant, so I may be in a plan that's exactly the same as somebody in a different bargaining unit, and maybe there's a $10, $15 difference between the plans. So essentially, all the plans there's a lot more of the plans have the same cost because they're the exact same plan.
Okay.
The difference, if there's there's some subtle differences, then that would vary the cost on primarily the health insurance. And actually, just one of the things we didn't mention was the dental insurance went down significantly, but that's such a small piece of this that but it did, what the analysis showed, there was the medical needed to go up significantly, the dental came down significantly.
Okay, thank you.
Just one point of also clarification on that is that when the town reports their increases, their potential insurance increase might be higher than ours because many of our groups have, they're first of all larger, but they're also their plans. We have more high deductible plans than the town does, and some of our plans are not as rich as some of the town benefits. So that's really where we'll.
Yeah.
No,
it's the opposite.
No, actually, and that was really,
No, it's not.
Danielle was with us, and Dominic, the three of us were there, and the insurance company did a really nice job explaining that there was going to be a difference, and that the board was probably going to see a little bit more favorable percentage than the town because of just the different bargaining agreements that we had. And he made it clear that we weren't subsidizing them.
Yeah.
We didn't even have to bring that up, which we were ready to, but
And
we didn't have
the
to bring it up.
The PPO plans have gone up significantly. So the PPO plans are in the 20, 25, 28% range.
Mrs. Costelli.
So thank you for that segue, because that was my next question. For the buy-up option, groups, or not groups, but people that are taking the buy-up option, I know that they pay the total difference, so does that negate any potential increase in the percentage? Or does that play a factor in establishing this percentage? Doesn't, because they're paying the total difference.
Correct.
Right?
They're playing, yeah, so if you're in a buyout plan and your plan goes up 40%, but the corresponding high deductible plan goes up 13%, or I'm just picking numbers.
Right.
Our impact will be to 13%.
Okay, so that's not an issue at all.
No.
Thanks.
I'm sorry. Mrs. Corso.
I think I missed it. What is our individual and our aggregate stop loss at?
Our individual stop loss currently is 200,000.
And we're moving it up to 250?
250, correct. The aggregate, I do not have in front of me, but I could get that for you.
Okay, and then aside from these plans, are there any other options to explore other less expensive insurance? or not really?
We do not believe so at this time. We did talk to the mayor about the state plan.
State plan is what I was thinking.
And unfortunately, again, we think that, and even the insurance consultants, because while everybody was in the room the other day, I mentioned it to one of them, and they said that where we are right now is not a bad place. And again, the challenge that I think that we have to contextualize this with is the fact that if we did not have, which is just life, unfortunately, circumstances, but if we didn't have those 11 catastrophic losses, or 13, whatever it was, 11 to 13, our actual rate increase would have been in the single digits. So the thing is that we have to make up the reserve, so that's why the rates went up. So that's why they were saying that we're in a favorable condition, even though we have to make up those rates. They felt that we were still in a good place. But we're monitoring it. The challenge with the state plan also that I found out as I've been doing a little bit more research is that when you move to the state plan, one of the things that districts have to be very cautious, and some districts have actually come off the state plan. You're required to stay on it for 3 years, and then some districts have actually come off of it, but you have to make sure that you open up your contracts again too, because the state plan is richer than the present plan that we presently have. So we would have to make certain that if we went to the state plan, because it's a PPO, that we would have to have a safety net or an exit strategy, that if we left the state plan, that we didn't guarantee that the union that we were, all of our unions, that same level of plan. So you'd have to have a side agreement, which is kind of important because that could get a little messy.
And one of the other pieces on the state plan is the retiree, retiree rates are significantly higher, and I don't believe we're allowed to charge retirees more than we charge the active employees, so we would have to essentially raise the active rates to cover that delta. But I think we're due to go out to bid next year on the insurance carrier, the processor of the transactions. We can revisit it at that point. But once this dropped down 10 or 11 points, it got the numbers changed significantly, obviously.
Mrs. Corso.
And my other question, and I think I had asked it last time, and we might be talking about it later, are we able to use the 1% account to fund any of that?
That topic has been brought up. We're still going to have conversations about that. There was no final decision made. I think right now the mayor wanted to get the numbers lower,
Yep.
so then we'll entertain that conversation as we move forward in the next few weeks.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, moving on.
So the next thing we wanted to do is to take a look at the budget now and look at the priorities. So if you could just, I'm going to put up on the screen, if you go to your PowerPoint, we're looking at page 112 and 113, but the numbers are different. Obviously, what you'll see up here, the numbers are different because we have the good news. Oh, yeah, if you have those. that'd be-
whole bunch, but I can
So I wanted to put it up here because as we talk about it, you'll have your hard copy, but then I can change the math, so you could see how the percentages change. So if you choose to add something, delete something, move it over to a different column, I can do that in real time, so we can actually discuss what the percentages are, so we don't have to have dueling calculators and stuff going, like we used to have. So this reflects the new number that our sustained services is a 3.06. So as you look at this document, the first item was the assistive technology specialist, which would have a speech language certification. And we most likely, that person would not only be doing assistive technology specialist work in the district, but also be servicing students with speech language needs. Because we've had an increase recently, in particular in birth to 3, with students with speech language needs. So I'll be very candid that this position, if we knew the information we knew now, just even as recently as this week, when we were developing this would have been in the sustained services budget, not on strategic plan. Because of the fact that we have so many students who are coming into our district, we had to open up another preschool classroom, which we just did. We posted for. That was already in the budget for next year. So it's not money that we had to add to the budget, but we are opening it up 6 months early. or 4 months early because we had so many new 3-year-olds that we're required to educate come to our system. Bless you. So with those students come a variety of needs. And so we are still I think that, we can't move forward. We would have to find some way to move forward with item 1 because that really now is more sustained than it is strategic because of the speech language portion of this person that's going to service students that exist in our district.
Mr. Votto.
Did you have to hire somebody for this new position now?
Yes.
You have contingency?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just one?
Just one. And a para.
And a pair?
Mrs.
Oh.
Costello.
Two pairs, actually. But they were in next year's budget also, so.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry, but could you just explain the role of this position again?
Sure. Amy, would you like to? You're the expert.
So the assistive technology specialist, so what we envision is hiring a speech and language pathologist that has a degree in assistive technology. So they would support in the assistive technology needs of the students, which is anything from a communication device to applications on the computer to support reading and writing and communication. And their role would be both. It would be dual.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Levesque, did you have a question?
Yes, I do have a question. How difficult will this position be to fill with that criteria
Most-
for that individual?
Most assistive technology specialists are speech and language pathologists because it's a natural transition from their position. They typically, especially that assistive communication, nowadays when they're in school, they're really getting that training. So a lot of them, it won't be difficult to find a speech and language pathologist that has assistive technology specialty. It will be difficult to find a speech and language pathologist carte blanche because there is a significant
Deficit.
lack of those. It will, so but at this point, we're desperate. We need a speech and language pathologist. So we would like to move forward and at least advertising for that piece next year.
And if you don't find that person, or how can we address this? I mean, do we have someone in mind identified?
No.
No.
The only other way that we can do this, which we've done in the past, and we don't necessarily want to go this route because it's best to have it as a district employee, would be to look at a service. So go through a contracted service with either an organization or another company. So you could hire somebody who would have the speech language certification and assistive technology, or you might end up having to do part of one and part of the other. But we're committed to making this work regardless. So whatever way we
Right.
have to do it, first of all, we have to meet the needs of the students that need speech language services.
Of course.
Secondarily, then, and it's not secondarily, but next, we need to get the assistive technology person on board. So it might, if we can't find one person that's a perfect fit for us, then
Mhm.
we might have to do 2 pieces, contract out for each side.
That might happen.
Yeah, it might, because it is a very tough position to fill.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Purcell, did you have a question?
No, I think they answered it.
Okay. Mrs. Recchio?
So the the AT piece of this, will that person that we're looking for, kind of like a unicorn, have a certification? Will they be certified ATP? And will this person be able to do AT evaluations, or will we need to go outside for this?
Yes, that would be what we'd be looking for. We would advertise for that piece, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It'll be much easier to find assistive technology specialist than a speech and language pathologist, to be honest with you. It's an up and growing field.
Mrs. Corso?
Is that a K through 12 position?
Yes. Actually, pre-K, pre-K 12.
Sorry. Pre-K?
Our preschoolers get forgotten all
I
the
do
time.
the same thing all the time, so.
Any other questions?
So that was the one position we really wanted to talk to you about, and then the rest of it is open to conversation from the board. The way we usually work this is that you look at the priorities. There are some that we believe, and I created a drop-down menu today in central office with the team, where it says alternative funding. So there's a drop down if we decided that we wanted to either allocate 1% or unencumbered funds. We've done that in the past. We've looked at technology, pulling those pieces out, kind of coming up what those amounts are. So that's why I put it on a spreadsheet today so we can kind of calculate that, knowing that we've already earmarked approximately $400,000 for ELA funds, for curriculum funds rather. But we wanted to at least have that there. So we've kind of done it this way in the past where like we go down, we'd have a conversation with board members, what do they support, what don't they support, and then looking at the ones that are non-reoccurring expenditures being those that potentially we could use money at the end of this year or 1% for next year. That's pretty much what we've done. Move what over?
She's gonna mess with your.
Okay, do whatever you want to do.
Mr. Bauer?
Would you say that the non-reoccurring expenses potentially could be paid for with the 1% or part of that?
Correct.
And they are, sorry.
We can go through which ones are which.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm saying. Maybe we can
Sure.
kind of highlight those so we'll know which ones we could probably take out for now, right?
Correct. So, Ms. Veyu, would you like to go through your IT items?
Sure.
Starting with number 6. Antivirus,
So we could,
is that reoccurring or is that,
Well, the last time we bought it, we bought 3 years up front. The town allowed us to do that. So if we could do that again, that could be a 1%.
okay, so I'll code it. If you just go through, I'll code them.
Sure.
Network,
Network life cycle, that would be a one-time. Network monitoring would be recurring. Computer replacement would be 1%. And then line 14 or item 11, the 11 and 12 would both be 1% and 13.
okay. And then, Mr. Deptula, could you go through yours starting with 14?
That's definitely a one-time expense. Item is a one-time expense for playgrounds, that's some simple paving, concrete blocks.
Mr. Deptula, could you turn your microphone on? Thank you.
So the Sheehan tennis courts, boom mower, those are all would be potentially 1%.
Yep.
All right, and I see Ms. Veyu, you've already continued down. So most of them are 1%. Facilities, replace carpet, band room, and those at Moran and Dag would be 1%.
Wait, where are you? What line are you on? I'm sorry.
25 and 26.
21? Okay.
Yep, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, those are all 1% down to, now we're on 29. Those would be 1%.
Yeah, the card readers would be 1%, right? Yeah.
And it goes down to, we go to 34. So those are all one-time purchases.
They are, yep.
So the ones that are not, I'll just quickly highlight in a different color.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just do, there's one here. And then these obviously are not one time. So, if we were, again, and what I'll do is,
I'm looking, I'm pretty sure they are.
we have more, but we only stopped there. All right, so if we, so if we take those out,
the S
Yeah,
is
what
still
do we-
security.
What do you say, we're color coding them?
Safety.
Yes.
Safety, security, yeah, same thing, I guess. Well,
So if we take those
Safety,
out, the
self-security.
total 1% allocation,
You doing the next page too?
no, just up to there is 601,880.
That's up to 34.
That's up to 34.
601,
880.
But we've already,
Mrs. Purcell?
but we've already allocated 400,000, right?
Yes, and we have an additional, at this time, what do we have? We had just another 200. Again, when we look at the end of the year and we look at our projections and we look at what usually happens, we'll probably gain at least another $300,000 to $500,000.
Okay.
So you would potentially be able to cover the 600,000 worth of these items in the 1%, from 1% or unencumbered. The difference, just to clarify for everybody here as well as at home, some items will push off to 1% because we can't possibly get the work started before the end of the school year. And then some of the ones, the town wants us to get the work done before the end of the school year, so we push those forward. So that'd be like the purchasing of the computers, it'd be the purchasing of some of the basic materials like the boom mower. That might have to go out to bid though, that might take a little bit longer. But the computers definitely would go ahead of time. We might be able to contract some of the pavement work from our vendor, get them started before the end of the school year. So it might go back and forth between 1% versus unencumbered, just to explain that.
So just because I'm new,
Sure.
if, my concern is, do we spend the 1% every year and spend it down? Or is this something that carries into other years? I guess my concern would just be if we're treating it like a true 1%, do we want to have something left for contingencies if something arises next year that
Well,
is an emergency?
We do, when we went over at the last operations meeting, we went over the 1%. We do have over $600,000 in contingency for special ed
Yeah.
that we don't spend every year.
Okay.
So that's our contingency. We did get criticized for having that by town councilors this year because they were concerned that we were keeping a nest egg. But that was there deliberately because the state could cut us at any time, which they did 3 years ago.
Sure.
And we had to come up with $334,000. And we didn't go to the town because we were able to make it work. But all the other years, we do have purchases, and we've been keeping track of those. So the goal would, I think we have a good cushion. Not that we want to keep it that. It could be something that the board decides, and we've talked about this. If we want to move forward with a building project, it could be used for that if something came in over budget or something. So we do have that, which is good.
Yeah, my point is just to the boiler issue, not the boiler,
Correct.
the tank issue we just had. You
Yep.
know, 81,000 is a lot of money
Correct?
to do on an emergency. So, my only concern is I realize we have 600,000, and I also realize that the state could change funding, and I just want to make sure that we're making a responsible decision if we don't put things that could be covered in the 1% into the budget request, making sure that we're still covered in the
Correct.
instance of this.
And the thing is that what we do traditionally is obviously every month, we're the only group that provides a monthly projection to the board and to basically the town. So as those numbers change, we would have to look at this list and go at the priorities and say, okay, this is too close to call.
Right.
And we deliberately wait. We do not, usually the board will not approve the expenditures of anything until June.
Of course, okay.
But that doesn't mean, full transparency, that we're not writing purchase orders, we're just not executing them.
Right.
Because once you approve on that Monday night, Karen probably already submits them in Munis before she leaves to make sure that they get approved. Because especially with technology, we know the lead time is important because everybody's buying technology at that point.
Sure.
So yeah.
Yep, okay, cool. Mrs. Purcell?
I know you cut it off at 34 because you had to cut it off somewhere, but you have the card readers, half of them are there and half of them are just below. And is that something you want to do, just half the district and not the other half? It's only 3,500 each, so.
No, we could move those. I mean, if the,
I mean,
it's not
it's a safety. You have
correct,
it
and
listed
it's
as a
not a
safety thing?
significant, it's not a significant amount of money.
I just wasn't sure which way you wanted to go. Either add it, you know?
Oops, sorry. I left one out. Oops, not 35,000. That would be an expensive card reader.
Those are just so you know, they're additional locations to install
Yeah,
them.
these are not, you know, they already exist. These are just adding more.
Added more, okay.
And Mr. Barone, I think I messed up your formulas. All right, so wait, so let me, everybody, I'm gonna do a do-over, so talk amongst yourself.
Okay.
So these card readers.
Mrs. Costelli.
I realized
So
that.
Mr. Votto has the floor apparently, so
Sorry.
I'll
Now
wait.
I'll do this the right way,
I
as you
think
guys.
He said, have your own conversation.
Yeah, no, he's doing, he would take advantage of that, of course.
Yeah, that would be
I want him to explain the card reader thing.
So Mark
can I
or
do
Karen
that?
can.
Okay, so these card readers are to take care of secondary entry points. It's not a real good idea to have a recess aide or a custodian outside a building with key access and card access. They can get in any door. So all it takes is somebody to go up to them and take that access away, and they're in the building. So these will help prevent that situation from occurring.
How? I don't get that. Because don't they use their badge to do that? So,
There can be a number attached to it. So you swipe,
oh, you have to have the code. Oh, got it.
and we can program, only certain cards will work in those doors. So not every teacher's going to be able to access the building through those secondary entrance points. That's kind of a weak point in our security right now, so it's something that needs to be addressed, but it's not by any means an emergency.
Okay, so now my question actually is to you. Stevens, and this isn't something we can entertain right now, but the playgrounds at Stevens and Parker Farms. Stevens, wasn't that relatively new? Didn't they just put that in a few years ago?
Part of it was, but there's some issues over there, and I think there's some equipment that's either broken or not repairable. But that's playground is in a couple different areas.
Okay, so I'm thinking of the part that's in the front there. Is that where when you drive by, you can see it?
Yeah, there's a modular unit, but it's not, that section's not really new. I mean, the steel, the steel platforms that are rubber coated
Yeah.
are actually rotting away.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
And those are not really serviceable items. Once that happens, it's time to put a new playground in.
Has it been that long? Oh, yeah. All right. Anyway, like I said, I know we're not entertaining that right now, but I just was curious. I thought it was relatively new. That's why I was surprised to see it here.
Mrs. Corso.
Thank you. So I'm still going back to the 1% helping us reimburse our insurance account. So we're prioritizing all these things, but then if we get approval to do that, where does that?
Well, we wouldn't be using next year's money. He would have us use this year's, the
Current
existing
year's.
1%. Because we did this last year. If you recall, we put $100,000. That's why the special ed account. I'm sorry. I have to stand. I apologize. My watch tells me when I have to do certain things. And I follow my rules now. The thing is that the 1% account last year was $700,000. But we used $100,000 to help reduce a deficit last year with the insurance. And the mayor also did the same thing for the town. Everybody got assessed an appropriate amount. So that's why if we did it again this year, it would be coming from that same account. It wouldn't come from new money. So that 600 would go down.
So it doesn't affect any of this stuff right here?
No. It would just affect the present 1% that was put in. That account goes back, I want to say 2 years, the one that we put aside for special ed.
Oh, it's gonna affect the special ed.
Correct. That's the account that would come from, like it did last year.
Aren't there's still other accounts with more money in it?
Yes, and we did an update for the board last month
Right.
on those. So those are all out to bid or about to go out to bid. And then there's only small amount, not hundreds of thousands of dollars, but there's small little pieces, depending on how those
Right.
bids come in, that money could be used before the special ed money to offset the insurance. We would do a full account analysis. It's just a lot of those are open purchase orders, so we have to, be mindful of that.
Mrs. Costelli?
So item 3, the Ag Science Program Coordinator, can we talk a little bit about that, what that's going to be?
When we brought the Ag Science Director, we had brought this position on several years ago. When the board approved this, we had said at the time that at some point in the future, we were going to have to, because the population of the Ag Science Program has increased, that we were going to have to look at making that person a coordinator position that had an administrative certificate and be in the administrators union, to supervise the teachers on the staff there, as well as to take on some basic discipline role in that particular environment. So this was something that came up in the high school budget presentations this year. We did go back and we had this conversation with the board when it first came out as in its inception. So this additional amount reflects taking the present position and adding to it an additional $24,986 to move it to the administrators union as a coordinator.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Mr. Votto?
Going back to that one, so that would take some responsibility away from the principal?
The principal and the assistant
the
principals.
assistant principals?
Yes.
The other thing I just wanted to say is that, my opinion, if we're gonna spend any of the 1% other than, I think the 1%, the one-time expenditures, I think the ones that have the S near it, to me, are a priority.
I agree.
I always think safety first.
Sure.
If there's a way to make things safer, I say we do it, if we have the opportunity to do so. That's just my opinion.
Is any of the ag science position reimbursable by the state?
We do not believe so through the grant. They have very strict guidelines. So we will make the annual request because we do try to cover, the staffing is not covered. The staffing, when it's a new position, is partially covered, and then you have to gradually transition into your budget. So we would have to look at that more closely, and we could make a request. I'm not 100% confident that we're gonna get it, so that's why we wanted to put it in the budget, because they are pretty strict with their funds as to how they don't require us to have a coordinator, that's the thing. If they required us to, then we would be able to get the reimbursement. Like, they required us to have certain student-teacher ratios, so that's why they're allowable to get the reimbursement at certain points. Same thing with like the clerk, when they did the review of ag science, they came in and they said we had to have at least a part-time clerk there. So they required us to do that, but they help us offset it for the first year, but then it becomes the board's responsibility. But this is not a requirement.
Mr. Votto?
Yeah, Dr. Menzel, how many students are in that program right now, do you know?
I want to say that we're just around 300.
And how many faculty members?
We have, let's see.
I'm sorry, I put you on the spot.
No, we have the, I'm just thinking, 1, 2, 3. 7, 8, I want to say we have eight staff members, but I'll get the official numbers. It's either 8 or 9 staff members, and I can get you the student count.
Now, are we still obligated, like we were in the beginning, to add, I know there was a change, I think, a couple years ago. We had to add a certain amount of students each year.
Yes, we're not obligated to do that anymore.
To do that, right?
Nope. We're done with that.
We're done with that, okay.
We're done with that. We transitioned out of that a year.
Do we turn away a number of students every year, or do we still have room for more, or what's?
Well, the thing is that
Are we still getting enough applicants?
Yeah, we're getting plenty of applicants. The challenge is that the school districts, and this is where sending school districts have to make a decision as to how many students they are going to bring to send to our district. So like Meriden reduced its cap on students, so we've been getting less Meriden students, not because they don't have applicants to take the positions. It's just they've decided to pay for less. So that's not, we've never had a challenge filling our spaces.
Because that's income, right?
Yeah. Well, the income, yeah,
Goes
from
to
the tuition
general
goes
fund.
over, but it does subsidize our budget, that's for certain. The mayor, I know he factors that in.
Mrs. Castelli and then Mrs. Purcell?
So I don't recall ever having seen a request from adult education on our strategic plan. And I see they're looking for 2 instructors for 3 hours per day for a 34-week program. Do you know? Can you
Yes,
explain about that?
this is additional programming. The state, again, it's not mandated, but the state is recommending that adult education programs increase the number of hours for certain courses. So we're trying, it's not mandated, it hasn't been statutorily required yet. Nice keyword is yet. But the fact is that we're trying to get ahead of the curve. And our adult education program, as you know, is probably one of, if not the best in the state of Connecticut. I mean, and I'm not trying just because it's in our district, just to overstate that. But we offer a tremendous amount of levels of programming. We still offer the 3 diploma programs. We offer day programs, not just night programs. We offer citizenship. We offer ESL and EL programming. So again, this was to get ahead of it. This has to do the additional credit requirement for the programs that the state is recommending. So I was just trying to get ahead of that.
Okay, thanks.
Mrs. Purcell?
That would be recurring though, right?
That would be a reoccurring
Reoccurring.
expenditure, yep.
Yep.
That's why I put it in yellow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay.
The coaches. Now, I see that, for the next 3 years, you're doing 2 coaches, 2 coaches, 2 coaches. Where are the coaches going next year?
These would be, these were actually looking at middle school and high school.
Okay.
So we were trying to move it up and then come back around to the elementary. That was Carrie's original plan, and I apologize, Carrie's homesick this evening.
Okay. So this is for middle school to start? Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Mrs. Corso?
Are any of those coaches reimbursable through Title I funds?
We've really tapped our grants. We've used a lot of the funds to offset expenditures like we have always in the past for staff. So it would be really, we can look at those numbers, but I don't think there's really any additional funds because you're allowed certain percentages for certain elements.
Yeah.
And I think we've really tapped it out between special ed, between regular ed, or I should say our interventionists and other support staff. We've really tapped those.
And then back to the adult ed, if we hire those additional instructors to get ahead of the curve, if the state would then mandates it and provides support to districts,
We could offset.
still get it even though we
Yes.
already have it in there.
We would be able to put it in the grant application, because we have to do our adult education grant every year. So we would be able to build that in the grant application. Because right now, we're not able to. We might, I mean, again, it's tough because the grant application for special ed is like, for adult ed is like special ed. The percentage is always a moving number because they figure out how many students are being served. They do a calculation, and every year, Sashi will come to Dominic and myself or whomever and say, our number went up or our number went down, and then we have to figure it out. So we might gain a little money to cover some of this year, or in next year, shall I say, but we don't know at this time. We don't get those numbers. They don't audit. It's like special ed. We don't get those until the spring.
I have a question, and then Kathy, you can go. I am wondering what the scope is for a dean of students for elementary schools?
Yes, and we had, in one of the sets of packets of questions from previous years, we kind of outlined it. The dean of students for the elementary schools really would be looking at a second set of hands at the elementary schools, not one for each school. This would provide there'd be basically 2 that would be basically 2 for the next 2 years. So there would be one on either side of town. And the person would be at the schools probably, once every other day or so on a rotation to help with some, some discipline issues that do happen at elementary schools, some parent communication things that need to occur. It would allow, I think what the principals are requesting is it would allow them to be in the classrooms more for instructional practices, to review instructional practices with teachers. The dean of students would not be working on the evaluation piece as directly. They would be more connected to the students and the student matters. They might be doing 504 meetings and not the PPTs, because the principal would still do the PPTs, but they might do the 504 meetings.
And how would, how did we come up with the number that we need 2, when right now we have 0?
Well, we figured one on either side of town, because it would be impossible
Well,
for,
they're not gonna commute each day, like in between the schools,
it just would be difficult going across 8 schools
okay.
for one person. The value add of that one person would be really, really limited.
Mrs. Castelli?
So, Sal, can you remind me what's the criteria for bonding? Is it 10,000 in 20 years or 20,000 in 10 years? Or
I think it's 20
20
years.
Or
I think I put
10,000,
it
right?
in
Is
the
it 10,000 or
book.
15,000?
Yeah, it was 20 years and 15,000.
15,000?
Yep.
Okay.
And Ms. Vayu saved the day. Mr. Votto, we have 315 students in ag science, 315, and we have 10 teachers. So
You were
thank you,
close.
Ms. Vayu.
So, and looking over this
I
list.
wasn't that far off, though.
No, you were not.
You were close, you were very good.
I would have won on Price is Right, because I was under.
So in looking over this list, and I know we can't put everything into bonding either, but, of course, we would want to put more of our money into things that are going to benefit kids.
Yeah, these aren't bondable items. None of these
None
are
of these are bondable?
No, that's why they're not on this list. We already have a separate list in your.
Okay, so like the boom mower, isn't that
No,
what last 20
oh,
years?
no,
Okay,
no. He won't, yeah.
all right.
So what we have requested and would go under a separate cover to the mayor would be that for the 2021 year, we're requesting $1.2 million, almost $1.3 million in bondable items.
Okay, okay.
Mrs. Levesque?
I'm back on the ag science program.
Oh, excuse me, I
coordinator.
apologize. Let me correct that, I apologize.
Okay,
It's actually $870,000 in bondable items. Our total facilities request was 1.3, but 870,000 would be for bondable. I apologize.
Got that. Okay, I'm back on the ag science program coordinator. So you're listing the cost differential between teacher salary stipend and administrative annuity. So is it my understanding that you have someone that has these qualifications already?
We would have to post the position.
Okay, that's what
And
what the
because it would
question
have
is.
to, because it's going from one union to another, so it would be posted. Obviously, we would encourage the person in the position to apply.
Mhm.
But again, we would have to post it, and we'd have to go through the interview process. The board would be part of that process because it's an administrative position, and we'd move forward to appoint.
Okay. One other question, though. The coordinator would have just administrative responsibilities, and that's it? No teaching responsibilities?
There would be no teaching responsibilities.
Okay, I just wanted to double check. on
Yeah,
that.
because they can't be in both unions.
No, I just, sometimes I know that there are interesting.
Yeah, we have not had that, at least during my 11 years.
Well, there have been other. Never mind.
Sorry.
Never mind, but, so then, let us say that perhaps a person would be the successful candidate, then we would have to replace that individual as well.
No, this is assuming, this person right now, the director role only does advisory,
Mm-hmm,
doesn't teach a class.
okay,
So this would not mean that we have to replace anyone. This is a swap out.
okay. Well,
There's
that
no
may-
added, there's the only added money to the budget is the approximately $25,000.
Okay.
And I don't mean only, you know what I'm saying?
No, I know what you're saying. I'm just trying to get clear in my mind what
Correct.
the impact of this would be, if the individual would be the successful candidate or not.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
What am I doing? This is
Mr.
actually.
Votto? Oh, Mrs. Castelli?
so Sal, just, where are we with our Mars?
Actually, I was glad you brought that up. I had two great meetings today. I met with two different potential donors today. But we're done with the first floor. The first floor is already, is pretty much funded. The second floor, we're working with Elite Construction on developing the design, and they're working to get donations to build Mars. And then I'm working on, as I said, I had 2 donor meetings today, and then I have 2 grants in the hopper. And then we have a couple of other donor meetings that we're going to be having. So we're in a good place.
Okay.
We're going to be opening up, we're going to have a public event on March 3rd. I hope you all are able to come. And at that event, hopefully we'll be able to announce a donor from today's meeting, I'm hopeful, to actually fund the corridor that's dealing with all the workforce and actually the jumpsuits for the students when they go to the center. So,
Okay, so we don't need to put anything for that in the
no, there
budget,
was just
but-
materials, the STEM programming materials. That was not for the center. That was just for summer programming that we're trying to expand for our students. So that wasn't for the center
No,
itself.
that's just what triggered my thought about
Yeah,
Mars. I
no,
wanna
it's
make sure
not-
that's not,
We had put in the
slowed
budget,
up.
we did put in the strategic plan for a person to assist with the program, but we did not put that as a priority at this time because we want to grow it. But we are being very creative in how we're making it work. And again, there was a tremendous amount of enthusiasm today from the 2 groups that I met with. And I got to do some demos, and I did coding for dummies, basically. The little ones, I should have just grabbed and had a 3rd grader come in and do it for me because I was doing line coding instead of block coding, but it worked. I navigated the surface. So, and we've had great collaboration with some of our maintenance staff. One of the maintenance staff members at Lyman Hall came up with a solution. We needed a compression chamber, and they cost thousands of dollars. And the kids aren't going to know what a real compression chamber is, so he was able to figure something out for like $175. So, and it looks awesome. I mean, you would never know the difference. So even from those of you who saw it when it opened in October to now, we have the cameras up. Karen and her team are working on getting the closed circuit TV going. We're going to be dropping in the TVs so that Mars Expedition will open. So it's really exciting.
Anything else?
I just had,
This is for Sal.
okay, so the total 1% now, because I can't see the bottom.
I'm
No, it's
sorry.
okay.
I didn't do a total because I didn't want to get yelled at for messing up the numbers by Mr. Barone.
Okay.
So if we do a total here, is 620,880.
Okay.
That's the 1%.
Yeah.
And you think that we have that money to cover that? You're guesstimating.
Again, none of this is a perfect science, but I think we can work towards this. I think that, again, some of these things will go out to bid also, so we know that sometimes they come back a lot less, and because of the way the market works. So I'm not significantly concerned about meeting this goal.
Okay.
I'm not saying that it's a slam dunk by any means, but I think it's something that we could attain many of these items. And what we'll do is we'll come back, as we always do. If we come back and we only have 575,000, we'll come back to you and say, okay, what do you want to prioritize? What do you want to prioritize? Do you want to make sure we do all the S's? Then let's look at how much the S's are, and then let's look at what we need next from there.
79,000.
The S's are 79,000?
If I had it right. I used my phone.
But for business,
It was calculator.
for board business, yeah.
I'm surprised I found calculator.
Fun.
Mrs. Costelli.
So, Sal, are you looking for us to give you a,
Well, we need to get a bottom
Percentage tonight?
number. We
Okay.
need a number because you have to approve something Monday night. I said it
Right.
gets to the mayor.
Mrs. Corso.
I want to talk a little bit about the grant writer.
Sure.
Do you foresee the grant writer writing grants that would cover things that are currently in our budget, or do you foresee a grant writer writing grants that would start new initiatives?
I would say currently in our budget first to help lower our bottom line. My challenge with the grant writer right now, and I know it's something that would help all of us at central office. We did not do well going out to bid with this. We did get a grant writing firm, but they want to charge us regardless if we get the grant or not. And I really would like to do more of a type of, you get the grant, you get the administrative fees that are attached to that grant. There aren't a lot of companies who want to do that. There are not a lot of people who want to. I think we have to find a person to do that and work on commission rather than going out through an RFP. So that's the challenge, and I have to still work through that with the town because the town doesn't let us usually go that direction. So as much as I like this item, I'm not wed to it. I would not be in the least bit offended. I don't think any of us would be if that got left behind. It's sad because I think we could capitalize on some of these grants. I know I was really irritated because I spent a couple of Friday afternoons putting together a grant, and I pressed submit, and it didn't tell you till the end that, because you had to go through this whole thing, and then it told you at the end that you didn't qualify. But the good news was I got all the work done, so now I'm using it for another grant. So that's the key thing, is you keep the folders. But some of the grants, they're being very clever right now. A lot of the foundation grants, they're making you do all the work, and then they don't, like, you have to go through these steps, and then they tell you along the way whether or not you qualify. And we weren't applying for it as a school district. I had applied through Hubcap because they're a 501c3, but they didn't have an annual income of annual budget of $100,000 or more, and so that disqualified us. So, we're building our repertoire. It's just unfortunate that, I wish, and we're still in conversations with the company that we did award the bid to, that we have to negotiate. So they were gonna get back to me, but it is tough. I don't wanna pay for somebody to write something that we don't get. I'm just stubborn that way.
Mr. Votto?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that 79,000 did not include the 2 new playgrounds.
No.
I figured, forget that. And the second question, did you want us to come up with some kind of a percentage tonight?
Yeah, we need to.
I mean,
Yeah.
what we all can live with individually
Yeah,
or something like that, like we
yeah.
did last year?
Well, we need to kind of focus on that. So I think that,
Oh, you did?
yeah,
Yes.
there's an
He
echo.
never listens to me.
There's an echo. It's okay.
You said percentage?
Yeah.
So that's what we need to figure out. So, I mean, I think the grant writer, again, just based on that conversation, I think it's something that while it's
Forgive me, I'm
it's
old.
good, I think we can wait on. I think, again, now it's up to you as a group to determine where you stand on the percent.
Mr. Reynolds?
So Sal, where are we right now?
So if we looked at those, if we kept all the yellow items in,
Yeah.
we're at a 3.63.
So 3.63?
3.63. And we started the night at the 3.06.
Would it be possible, just, again, what if, hypothetically, let's say that we take out the Dean of Students, what would that bring it down?
Hold on 1 second, I can do that.
Yeah.
That brings it down to a 3.41. I'm just gonna put it back so I don't lose the number.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, duh. Sorry, I didn't think that.
Can we talk about that communication specialist also?
Yeah, that's another, we didn't even get somebody to bid on this. So again, it's another challenge because we had to go out for an RFP because we were doing it by an hour, we were doing it by project base because that's what the town. If we did it as a part-time person, because I didn't budget for it this year. I just did it because I said to all of you that I would put it out to bid, see what I got, and if it was worth it, I would come to the board and see if we had money to do a project. This would actually be to actually post it as a part-time position, so you would have a real body. The consulting doesn't really work for us. The good news is, though, I do have 2 teams of Quinnipiac students who are going to be working as communications interns, starting, I think, later this year. I have to go meet with them next week, so I'll be going to visit with them. So we've been reaching out, and it's free.
So we can eliminate that communication
Yeah,
specialist?
I mean, as much as it pains me because it is something that we could use, I would agree.
I would also, and then I'll grab Mrs. Castelli. I would also say, since we don't seem to think that there's gonna be a grant writer in our realm of possibilities, based on the research we've done so far, that we should probably just cut that as well. I know that right now we're talking in terms of pennies, but
No, I understand.
I think that would be something that, since if we found somebody in advance that we kind of knew a rate for, it would be one thing, but when all the rates are coming back substantially higher than that, and there's no bang for your buck type of clause in there. I don't feel comfortable moving forward. Mrs. Castelli?
So help me out. I know it's either in our book
No
or
worries.
in the presentation. There's the comparison of all the years and the percentages that we requested and what we received.
Yes.
Where is that? Is it,
Um,
it's in here in the presentation?
Yeah,
I
so
couldn't
if you
find
go
it.
to our presentation, I'll find the page.
But if you go over here,
It's towards the end.
I apologize, let me see. So last year, for example.
We have that in there, I think.
Yeah, I saw last year it was 250, 2.5 is what we had requested. But
Yeah.
I know we have something here that shows us all the historical,
Yeah.
but I can't find it.
Page
There-
58?
Let me,
Oh, no, that was just uncontrollable?
yeah, no, that's
That's
that
uncontrollable.
piece.
I mean, I can see it. It's like columns of,
Well, here's sustained services.
There is a
We
page.
always have that in there somewhere.
oh, is this?
So the board request last year was a 2.5.
Right.
We received a 1.73. Then if you turn to the next page, historical budget analysis, page 20, page 20.
Page 20.
So the board proposed budget in
That's it.
18-19 was 2.42. We got a 1.17. We did a 2.99 in 17-18 and got a 1.8. We proposed a 4.48 in 16-17 and got a 2.32. And then a 4.88 in 15-16 and got a 2.88. And then you could see the rest of them.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Thank
Look
you.
at that first year, huh? Wow.
Well,
Yeah.
that was a, yeah, we don't want to read.
That was from the good years, you know.
Mrs.
Things were
Ratchett?
good.
That was prior to my time.
That was it was year before.
That was the year before me.
All right.
Mrs. Raccio?
So if I'm doing my math right, the 31.2 is equivalent of a .03 increase. So
Correct.
if we took both of those out, it would be a decrease from the 3.63 by 0.06%,
Correct.
which would bring us to a 3.57.
If you just took those two out,
Right.
So the
and you
grant
left the
writer-
dean of students, so if you
Take
left
out the grant writer and the communications,
3.57.
and it would be a wonderful problem to have if we even got close to that from the mayor. It really becomes a challenge once we get the number and figure out how we're going to make everything happen. So, for me, that would be a number that I would be comfortable with.
357?
357.
Did that include?
Mrs. Corso?
I'm sorry.
What are the numbers at the elementary schools that would support additional administrators? What are approximately, how many students are at each elementary?
Actually, many of our, it's almost, we were discussing this today, that when you look at our two high schools, especially when you look at, Sheehan, each administrator there has less students than each of our elementary principals to be responsible for. So the numbers are on par. So if you look at your budget book and when you look at the first section or the second section, you look at our elementary schools, Cook Hill projected 323 next year for one administrator. For Stevens, 319. So again, you have 3 administrators at Sheehan and you have 770-something students next year. So that's less than 200 students. It's about 250 per administrator. So they have less. Elementary Highland is 348 projected next year. 300 at Moses Y. 299 at Fritz. And Parker Farms is 247, so it's this, I think Parker Farms is the smallest. And then Pond Hill is 268, and Rock Hill is 308. So they all would have more than if you did a student ratio for, in comparison to Sheehan. And then Moran, you would have 609, so it's 300 per administrator. and I think DAG is a little bit, 652 rather.
Mrs. Raccio?
So can you speak a little bit to the career trajectory of a dean of students? I think we have one assistant principal that came to us who was formerly a dean of students. Would this be a position that would be able to move into a principal role, like at the elementary if it opened? How
Yeah,
would
I
that
think it
career path-
definitely, most likely, I mean, it depends on the person that we hire, but most likely they would be a best fit for a principalship at an elementary school. They could potentially look at it going to an assistant principalship at a middle school, if that's what they chose to do because of that overlapping, and then go from there.
Mrs. Purcell?
I just want to ask a little bit about also the load on the elementary principals, besides just discipline, because it's not just numbers. I think, and I'm not sure, you have to correct me or let me know, but I know evaluation-wise, teacher-wise, they're similar across the district,
Correct.
but they have more pairs that they have to evaluate than the other levels because there are more pairs at that level?
Correct. They do have more paraeducators because they're the only level that has paraeducators, especially
Right.
pre-K2.
Right.
The
and
3-5 only have very limited, middle school have limited, high school.
So that's an additional responsibility.
Correct.
The other thing, and I'm not sure about this, I can ask special ed, but it seems the identification process of trying to find students for special ed or 504 is very intense at the lower levels because we're just seeing the students and just starting to identify, so there might be more of those type meetings too? Is that true or not true?
It is at the preschool level because we get all the 3-year-olds coming in. Preschool is very heavy PPT-wise. I would say in terms of the identification of students, it's more on the middle schools, believe it or not. The 3-5 middle schools are the ones where most students are getting identified because we need to make sure that they received instruction before we identify them.
So you're saying you said preschool and then what was the second part?
Preschool and then once again in like 3 through 8
Okay.
is really where we see
All
that
right, I was just trying to think
identification.
of load,
Yeah.
that are on the principals.
Mhm.
Mrs. Corso and then Mr. Votto.
So if we didn't hire those, or were we gonna look to, make the caseloads more equitable across administrators? Like, would Sheehan cut down to 2.5 administrators instead of 3?
We actually have been talking about having conversations as to how we can potentially reutilize resources. We're not committed to doing that at this point, but that has been a conversation that we definitely have had. We need to see, the numbers that we have right now are projections, so we do need to see where they fall. But yeah, we do have to consider those things. We have to look at everything equal and determine. The challenge is that you have different skill sets. So you have to be creative in the sense that you probably wouldn't necessarily have a high school administrator going down to an elementary school.
Right.
And if they go down to a middle school, then you'd have to have the right middle school person to be able to go down to an elementary school. So you have to, it's all developmentally, you have to look at the developmental mix, because the best example of this is when we have Dave Bryant every so often, he'll fill in at an elementary school, and he's like, I don't know how they do this. So it's cute. He comes back and he comes back all flustered, like, oh my.
Do you still
Yeah, I have a question.
Mr. Votto?
Aaron, what was your question again? To reduce the administration?
If we didn't add these dean of students at the elementary level, would we look to cut an administrator or a half something like that to level out the caseloads for administrators?
And
Because right now, if we're looking at our elementary schools, I mean, Parker Farms was the anomaly, but most
Correct.
of them have between 3 and 320 students,
Mhm.
where our administrators at Sheehan have like 250 students or so. or
We
less.
did pull the data on middle schools and high school assistant principals, and most of the school districts in our DIRG, at least, have the same ratios. So they do have. Sheehan is not so much an outlier. There's one school in particular that they are outlier with. That's an outlier. The whole group is Rocky Hill High School. Has only 2 administrators for more students than Sheehan has, but most of all the other high schools that we were able to get data from had the similar amount of administrators for the same numbers. So that's a challenge. I mean, we all know, and this is something, again, that we have to think through, and we have to make sure we don't make a rash decision, because it might come back to haunt us, is that even though there's less students, there are problems. I think that, we have to balance this. And so, and again, I think also it's not, like I was just explaining, it's difficult to say, okay, well, even if we said, oh, well, Administrator X is gonna go down to an elementary school one day a week on one side of town, and another day a week on the other side of town, and then do 3 days a week at the high school, that's not necessarily gonna work efficiently. And they might not be able to make that transition, because it is really two different worlds.
Mrs. Castelli, then Mrs. Raccio, then,
So I just want to make sure I have this right. So if we take out the $620,880 of 1%.
Correct.
And the items, 20, the 31,200 for the communication specialist and the 31,200 for the grant writer.
Yep. The
Is that
final
what puts us
percentage
at
is a 3.57.
3.57 with all that out, okay.
Correct.
Thanks.
Mrs. Raccio.
The instructional coaches, they do not do evaluations, correct?
No, they're in the teachers' union.
The dean of students, those positions would allow the principals to have more time in the classroom, correct?
Correct. That's the goal.
So, in my mind, I see value in that because of the investment we're already making on the elementary level with having more tier 1 instruction, having Literacy How come in to work with. Next year will be our second year of a cohort of 30 teachers. So to make sure what we're training and we're providing for resources to the tier 1 teachers, as well as the interventionists and other people in the school, having the principals have the flexibility, not that it's gonna free them up a lot, you're gonna have only 2 deans, if we even got that, across 8 schools. That still gets them into those classrooms more to make sure that there's fidelity of instruction and implementation of the PD that we've invested in. That's how I kind of look at it. Am I wrong in saying that as to operationally how
No,
this will work?
operationally
can't-
it'll work. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Votto, Mr. Ross, and then Mrs. Corso.
Okay. So I believe I just heard that the main objective is to get administrators into the classrooms more, if we
Correct.
were to get deans.
Correct.
Okay. Couple things. I feel that we do have curriculum coordinators, we have coaches that help teachers in the classrooms. So I think we relieve the principals of some of that duty by having those people. The other thing, we are in the process of coming up with a new evaluation tool. And it could reduce the number of formal observations that a principal needs to make per year, per teacher. So that would be less responsibility on them if that were to occur. This board has to approve that plan. So I'd rather not. My own personal thing is I'd like to see what happens with that, the evaluation plan. And also keep in mind that we do have curriculum coordinators that we pay an administrative salary to. We do have coaches on the elementary level. We have interventionists. I think we have so many things there to help students and teachers.
Bless you.
Bless you. I don't know how much of a difference it's gonna make having the 2 deans. So I could hold off with that in lieu, to put some of these other things in. That's mine.
Mr. Ross.
Yeah, just a response to your comment, or the discussion about cutting assistant principal to a half-time. in
I
the school.
didn't say we were, so I
No,
want
I
to go
know, but
very
just
clear on that.
my opinion of it.
Yeah, because
Uh,
I know, I'm
I
not
just don't
saying
want to
that.
see that happen because I don't want to have a kid that's got an assistant principal who he has confidence in and he has a problem Monday and he's got to wait till Wednesday to talk to him about it. I just think that's poor planning. Thank you. And I know you're not planning it.
I
Just
just
my
want to make
opinion.
sure that everybody
Yeah,
hears that.
Just my
Because I
opinion.
don't want it on Facebook tomorrow that Dr.
Yes.
Menzo said that we're cutting any positions. I did not say
No,
that.
I understand
We had a
that.
conversation about the reality of the numbers. We had a conversation about the data, but I did not say that we were cutting any positions at the high school in administration.
I got that, but
No,
just-
I know you did, but I'm
Okay.
just gonna say it multiple times,
Thank you.
because that's all that will be heard at this meeting.
Mrs. Corso, and then Mrs. Purcell.
So is there another way to get deans of students without paying administrative salaries. For example, I remember years ago, we had the option of a teacher applying for, who's
Internship.
doing their 092, and they do an internship.
Yes.
So we get it for the cost of a teacher instead of the cost of an administrator. Is there a way we can alleviate some of that?
We could go back to that. We could go back to having discussions about that. This real request came from the elementary principals themselves. So we could go back to them, and still, if you look at that and say we did 2 of those, it's still gonna cost us about $160,000, because we're gonna have those teachers offline, and we're gonna have to pay for, well, it wouldn't necessarily cost us that much because we'd pay for a long-term sub. So say, even if we did $200 a day times that's $36,000, so it'd be about $80,000 worst case scenario, versus this amount. So we could go back to the administrators and say that this is something that we're willing to consider. How would this work for them? But that would be only with one on either side of town. They couldn't take on the responsibility of 504s because they're not an administrator. So we would have to determine what would they be taking off the plate of the principals. I don't know if it would be value added. I can't answer that. They're the only ones who could really answer that. But I appreciate what you're saying, because there was one they only had it at Yalesville at the time when it was called Yalesville, because the school was they almost had 500 students in the building. And that's usually the threshold for an assistant principal at an elementary school, is about 500 to 600 students. So, because that's a lot, obviously, for one individual. So they were the only school that had it.
Mrs. Purcell?
I just have a question about salary. Contractually, elementary principals make less than middle school, and middle school principals make less than high school? Is that
Correct.
So they're making less money? Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Costelli?
Okay, just one more figure. Without the dean of students, is that the one we're at 3.41? Without the
No.
1% and without the,
We're at actually, without the dean of students, without the grant writer, without the 1%, without the communication
Yeah.
specialist, we're to a 3.35.
3.35? Thank you.
Mrs. Corso?
I know that ag science is up there, but is there an issue with the way ag science is running now? Like, are they asking for that program coordinator? Are they saying we need this support?
It came from the principal of the high school of Lyman Hall.
I'm comfortable cutting out. Because I feel like if it's not broken.
Sorry.
If it's working and it's not broken, I mean, I would be, I don't know, comfortable cutting that one too.
I think that, and in all seriousness,
And
not
the person's not teaching either, and there's a department of 10. So our other curriculum coordinators have departments of much larger and aren't teaching, so. And in terms of actual department heads, that's being, I don't see the need for that also. That would be one I would take off as well.
Mr. Reynolds?
Yeah, another what if. So, down to 3.35%, can you just, if we take out the instructional coaches, what does that bring it down to?
So what am I taking out? The instructional coaches? All right, let me
Number
just
2.
do this because I don't want to lose these amounts.
All right,
Because I'll have to go find them. So if I take out the coaches, and then, am I leaving in the ag science coordinator?
yes,
Okay.
but we're limited, we're not including the
Yeah, the other stuff. So it's a
deans.
it only drops it down to a 3.33 instead of a 3.35.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no.
No.
No,
it
I
should be-
messed up.
Yeah,
I
it
messed
should
up.
be more
I'm
than that,
sorry.
'cause it's
I
160.
apologize. I
Yeah.
took out something.
You beat
I'm
me
like,
to
wait a
it.
minute, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
So it brings it down more. Hold on
Yeah.
one second. 042. And if
guess
we
I'm
do
probably
a
just
0
over
there,
3.
it brings it down to a 3.19.
Yeah.
Mrs. Raccio, then Mrs. Purcell?
And I guess just for TV Land, to be clear, tonight we would be taking consensus on the number to send to the mayor.
We take on a consensus to the number that would go to Monday's board
To
meeting.
Monday's board
That
meeting.
you'll
that
actually
would
take a roll call vote on. That'll go to the
go
mayor.
to the mayor. Then when we get the number, the actual number that
Then we
he
come
gives
back,
us,
yeah.
we come back and we look at this list again and say,
Absolutely.
in case anything changed, here's where we're at now.
Yeah, and there,
So today is like kind of get in the ballpark of a vision of
Correct.
where we want to go, take a consensus on it, put it on Monday's agenda, move it forward to the mayor, and then we revisit this list when we have the actual number.
Exactly.
And it gives us 3.5.
well, and the thing is that we also, in the ensuing months, when we wake up from that dream,
Just saying, it was worth a try.
we also are looking at
Tammy
other.
Raccio says mayor
Yeah,
gives 3.5.
there you
That'll
go.
be in the paper tomorrow, too.
The thing is that the reality is that we will also be looking at other accounts to see where we fall. So if there are any sustained services that we could reduce.
It will be closer to the end of
So,
the year.
yeah.
We'll have more firm numbers
So
there.
we can look at that.
right.
Mrs. Purcell.
Oh, no.
Mr. Votto then.
For some reason, I didn't think last year we came up with one number at
Yeah.
this meeting. I thought everybody had ear.
We had our own.
You each said your number, but then you had to come to consensus because we had to put
Right,
something.
We negotiated it out.
So for example, I will start, and I am comfortable saying I would be comfortable with the 3.35. That's where I would
Good for you.
would vote, so there you go. What do you want to do, Mike?
I don't-
Yeah, that's,
I was
'cause
gonna
you
say-
all talked about your number you were willing to agree with, and then you came to consensus.
Right, so I can go for it too. I think, I do want the deans for the elementary, but I'm with Ms. Corso that I probably could lose the VOAG, but I don't know where that puts me. I think it's around a 3.5. I'm just guessing.
2, 4, 3.55.
Okay, 3.55.
So we have a 3.35, and a 3.55. The difference is ag science, no deans of students, and then the other one is no ag science, deans of students. We all came to consensus that the communications persons and grant person are for another day.
I'm gonna go with the 3.35.
So we have 3.35. Anybody else? I have 3.5. I feel like I'm an auctioneer.
Wait a minute. Let's just go around.
Yeah, thank
Mrs.
you.
Corso.
Yeah, yes, we should.
So I actually would get rid of the ag, but I also think that the dean of students would be really helpful at the elementary school. Where does that put me, 3.55?
Correct.
I don't really like that either. But I can't see anything, I also, okay, so the other piece is the adult ed. I'm okay not getting ahead of the curve on the adult ed at this point. If we were to take the adult ed piece out, what would we be? Where would I be?
It's
nothing.
It's small.
0.02.
Yeah.
It brings it down to a 3.53.
That's
Yeah.
where I'm good.
3.53. All right.
Can you
I'm
move
good.
roll back up a little bit, all the way up to the top?
Oh, up
Other
this way.
Yeah, okay.
Sorry. Mr. Ross?
Yeah, I'm good leaving the adult ed thing in 3.55.
All right, so we have 2 for that, 2 for that. Ms. Levesque?
I'm having a little difficulty looking at equity in the system with administrators. That is a concern for me.
Erin, or Mrs. Corso, you are with, your number is with the deans.
with the
Yes,
deans
okay.
minus the
Minus
adult ed.
the instruct,
And,
okay.
and ag,
And,
Minus
yeah,
the
yeah,
ag
okay.
and adult ed.
and the adult ed.
So that number is with everything, the assistive technology specialist, the instructional coaches are still in with that number?
So I'll go through the three options.
Please do that.
We have so far. So the 3.55 would include everything, the ag science, it would include everything except the grant writer and the communication specialist. So it would include the dean of students, it would include ag science, it would include the adult ed, it would include the instructional coaches, it would include the assistive technology. Okay, so that's the 3.55, that's the richest one. The 3.53 would include everything that I just mentioned minus the ag science coordinator and the adult ed instructors. And that's a 3.53. The 3.35 would be without the instructional coaches.
No, without
No,
the-
without the deans.
No,
Without
the
the
dean of
deans, rather.
students?
I'm sorry, the deans. So no deans.
But you also
And
said
the
the
other things, too.
3.53 had the adult ed, no adult ed, I thought.
Correct. The
Okay.
3.53 is no adult ed and no ag science coordinator.
Right, okay.
Well, since this is a philosophical discussion, I'll go in with 3.55.
Kathy, just one more time.
3.35.
Okay.
All right. Patty,
Oh, I was 3.55.
3.55. Okay. Pat,
3.35.
3.35. And Autumn.
Tammy?
3.55.
Okay, so Tammy was already on I already had her there.
Okay,
Wait, I'm off now because I already have 9 people, so I couldn't possibly have 9. So I think, who were the 3.55s? It was Karen,
Karen,
Patty,
Ray,
Ray,
and
and
Tammy.
Tammy. And then 3.35 was
It was Kathy and Pat,
and Mike.
And mine.
and, I didn't.
We didn't
realize
get there
did
yet.
Mike.
Yeah.
Oh, I just assumed because he was the one who's,
I said it.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. All right. And
So
then-
now I'm good.
and
So
then
now it's
there's
up to you.
Oh, cool, well. I actually, although, realizing that this is gonna get cut, I would keep pretty much everything in except for the couple of items, so I'm at 3.55 as well.
Okay.
At least we know preemptively to the conversation that we're gonna have when it does get cut, what we're all looking to probably cut. But for now, I think that it's too preliminary to cut it ourselves. Mr. Votto?
I was under the impression that 3.35 did not include taking out the adult ed. I thought it was
It
just.
didn't.
It
doesn't
does.
take
The
it out.
3.35 only takes out the
You clarified
deans.
that, I thought you said that.
It only takes out the deans.
The
the
dean
3
and the
point-
other- right.
And the grant writer and the communication
okay.
specialist. The 3.53,
Right.
not 3.5,
Right.
took out the
Took
ag and the adult.
Yeah, somebody had to make that difficult then.
Mrs. Costelli?
So I just want to make a comment. The reason I voted to take out the dean of students is because of where it falls in the strategic plan priority list. It's pretty far down there, which is again why and based on our historical requests, last year 2.5, the year before that 2.42, the year before that 2.99, to go, I'm trying to keep it as consistent with where we've been in the past few years, and that's why I'm at 3.35. I just wanted to give my justification for it.
Totally. Mrs. Purcell?
And I like that you did that, but we just got banged with the insurance, so they can't come back at us too badly.
You don't think?
Well, I'm just saying, there's a reason. It's not like, you know what I'm just saying?
Point well taken. Good job.
So based on this, I'm sorry,
Oh,
So do we
Mrs.
take that?
Raccio has a question?
go for it.
Can you make that look pretty so that we get to what it looks like for 3.55? Or maybe it is and I just can't see the bottom of it.
It's,
No, it's not you, I think it's just.
It's
No, it's not you, it's
actually-
just at the top.
it actually is a 3 point, Why is it now coming out to a 3.57? Maybe
Because
I-
that's what I was at before when I was.
Oh, I know why, because this,
You
the
didn't take
5,000 for the instructional materials will go over to 1%, so it's a 3 point, oh, this has to be 0, not. Yeah.
No.
Um,
Something else.
There,
Yeah, but zero.
Oh, no, it's zero.
The three
Oh, no.
point five seven was only taking out the.
yeah, it's 5.7,
Was only taking out the grant writer and communications, everything else stayed in, and that got you 3.57.
5.7.
So
See, I
you
thought-
needed to take out another 30,000.
I thought the 355 took out the VOAG too.
No, that was 353.
No, so,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
it's 3.57,
Taking out the communications and the
Yeah.
grant writer.
correct.
Okay.
So we changed 3.55s to 7?
Yep.
Yeah, so are the people that voted for that still okay with the extra .02? Mr. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Levack?
I'm still looking.
Ms. Purcell?
Yes.
Ms. Raccio?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Allison? All right.
Well, it can be that for now.
Philosophical.
It's a philosophical discussion. That's what it is.
All right, so if we're there, then we have, what I had is 3.57 received 5 consent votes, 3.353, and 3.531. So,
3.35 got 3 votes.
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
And 3.
So the 3.57 has it with 5 votes. So that's what will be brought to the board on Monday night for you all to take consensus.
Great.
Or to vote on.
Will you send a final of what that?
Yes,
gets,
we'll work on
Or will it be
this. and
online or something?
It won't be online just yet. It's gonna get cleaned up
However,
first.
just so I know
We'll
what it.
send something out to, our goal is to send something out by Friday afternoon for all families that goes with the packet, so
I mean,
you'll
I
get that
marked
as
it
well.
up, but.
So yeah, we'll wanna clean this up
Send
and
it in
take
the
out those
packet.
other items and put it, cause I do the fact sheet for families. So now that I have your number, I'll be working on that tomorrow.
Okay.
And Friday, said it goes out by Friday afternoon, you'll get it, they'll get it, teachers will get it. Anybody who wants it could have it.
All right, so, that would, oh, I'm sorry, Mrs. Raccio?
I know this was like an extraordinary year, that there were so many moving pieces, and you guys always do a fantastic job, but you kind of were waiting on the sidelines to jump into action. So thank you for pulling it all together and getting it to us so that we could still do our thing. Thanks.
And I would just like to echo Mr. Barone and his staff and Ms. Hale and everybody working so diligently on these numbers. Really, they take the kudos this year over anyone else on the team. I mean, we all work together, so I don't want to slight anybody on the team, but really them coming in at the 11th hour, pulling that together, we can't thank them enough.
Thank you.
So,
So, that was the consensus, so moving on to the next is public comment. Any comments? Seeing none, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Great, have a good night.